Hello, my friends, and welcome to a space where pleasure is treasured, relaxation is not what you think it is, and life firing on all cylinders is what we're about. If you are somebody who wakes up every day asking for way more, consider this your happy place. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I am happy to be with you today from my home and my yard. Beautiful Colorado summertime. And I just returned from a 5-week trip in Europe, which was amazing. Such a huge gift. And it's always amazing to have a home to come home to, a place to come home that is as incredible as where I've been. So I'm very grateful. I wanted to do this session, this podcast outside today, because the birds have a lot to say. I hope you can hear them. If you can't, you can just tap in energetically. And I've been playing a lot lately with silence and a different kind of listening. And I have really, it's been really a huge gift to me. And there's like, it's so funny because there's just so many areas of my life where this is showing up. And to me, like when we really allow ourselves to have silence, and we'll talk a lot more about what that is, what that entails, how that weaves its way into everything. When we allow ourselves to have silence, there's a lot of magic there. There's a lot of awareness there. There's a lot of possibility there. There's a lot of contribution that the universe can be, that the earth can be. So I wanted to weave some of that through today, this podcast. And you know, the energy of silence is one that it actually is. There's a lot of miraculousness that comes with it, and I think for those of us that are the seekers of the world, there's so much noise. There's so much noise, and so much of it is so unnecessary, and it's designed to really keep us distracted and distracted away from ourselves, distracted away from what it is that we know, what it is that we actually be, what's true for us. And that space of knowing who you are and knowing what's true for you, it's an ongoing exploration. And it's not something that you like arrive to and get to like, okay, this is who I am, this is what's true for me, done. We don't arrive there. We continually discover more about that. And it requires, and we discover more about ourselves, about our bodies, about what makes us tick, about what we love, what we don't love, what we would like to do. And there's this very courageous space of creation and creating business and creating money and creating all kinds of things in the world, creating with our bodies, that becomes easier and easier if we are willing to listen and to respond and to gift our bodies what it is that they are asking for, to gift our businesses what they're asking for, and all areas of our lives, our relationships, all of that. A lot of that requires getting out of our own way. And so how do you get out of your own way? Well, you get out of your mind. You stop thinking so much. There's a tool in Access Consciousness called Interesting Point of View, which is an absolutely amazing tool that is so simple that most people don't use it and don't get the power of it. interesting point of view is if you're not familiar with the tool, it's about, any decision or judgment or thought that you have about anything. It's about going to, like not believing it, basically, not buying it, seeing it as just an interesting point of view. And when something comes up, it's like, interesting point of view, I have this point of view, or interesting point of view, somebody else has this point of view. And really being that space, it's something again that you can just continue to explore and continue to choose. It's really different. It's a really different way of creating and way of being. And it's not for the faint of heart. Like you have to be willing to let go of your ideas about who you are and the things that you use to define you. And it's so funny because we think that when we define ourselves, that we are actually, that when we define ourselves, we have some level of, like, it helps us to know how to move in the world, where to move in the world. It helps us to know that we're right and not wrong, and being a good person and all that kind of stuff. And that is actually the opposite of what it appears to be. Um, Defining ourselves through the defining of ourselves, we actually confine ourselves, and we confine what it is that we can create. And it is in the quieting of your mind in a very deep way through interesting point of view. And I would say also, like, really tapping into nature, that allows us to get to this space of silence that is so different and so much greater, and will give us the awareness that we require for everything that we desire to create. For me, this is a lifelong exploration, and it's one that uh, I'm not looking to get anywhere with it. It's like I just I really love the adventure of creation. I love exploring things, exploring new ways of being, exploring new possibilities, new choices. And yeah, I'm fascinated by the adventure of creation. And and it's a gift to me. It's such a gift to me and to my universe, and um, something that I'm just so grateful for. And having this, like, I feel like for me, one of the things that keeps exploding more and more all the time in the most beautiful way is a space of gratitude, where I'm just so grateful every day for everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, like these flowers behind me, like I'm surrounded by my patio has lots of flowers. I'm just surrounded by, I love surrounding myself with beauty and creating beauty. And I get actually more and more all the time what a capacity that is for me, and also like how nourishing it is, how vital it is to me. Something that seems frivolous to other people, or like a luxury or not important, is like, to me, it's like a very key aspect of my life and what makes me and my body happy. And so much of what is available with that comes through a deeper level of listening. Now, just have to let the birds talk a little bit. Because, we can't hear those whispers, those chirps, those little subtle noises, and the subtle awarenesses that we have when there's too much noise in the system. And so, how do we turn down the noise? Well, there's a lot of things, and I would say this really does span across our bodies, our businesses, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our reactions. it spans through creation. It encompasses, we could have a conversation about that in regards to money, relationships, family, so many things. And when we get out of the identity that we've created with our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions, our reactivity, we can actually kind of sit back and listen in a different way to something that is just so much greater. And again, requires a lot of courage. It requires a big willingness to be different. And so, where to now? Um, so one of the things that many, many years ago, when I started kind of, playing with these conversations with, consciousness and, energetics and things like that, I she was kind of like a therapist slash spiritual counselor in a way. And she would always say, you cannot, she goes, I've never known anybody to wake up that wasn't a meditator. She was really, really, really big into meditation. And I just kind of, I loved my conversations with her. It was like such a gift to see her and, chat with her and stuff. But I was just like, I couldn't meditate. And I gave myself a lot of grief for it. Because I kind of decided that it was, something that was wrong with me, something that was inadequate about me, is that I couldn't get myself to sit and meditate. And, fast forward many, many years, and I discovered, oh, that's because I'm quite ADHD. And I now know how to use that as a capacity and rather than a wrongness. And to me, meditation comes now through moving my body, laying on the grass, short periods of time. It's not a sitting in a particular position, quieting my mind, trying to, get the thoughts to stop. And bars, access bars is an amazing kind of meditative tool, I would say. It actually creates, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with the bars, it's 32 points on the head that you just touch the points lightly, and it clears like the electromagnetic energy of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and the decisions of like who we think we are and all of that. And it it really starts to um, it basically, they've done a lot of research, and it actually creates some pretty profound effects on the brain. And it actually creates, it can, like one man who did some research into the bars, found that he was a researcher of the brains of meditators, like very advanced meditators, and he found that the bars created something that was more powerful, or like as powerful as like a deep meditation session done by somebody who was a very advanced meditator, like had been meditating maybe for 30 years or something like that. And that made so much sense to me, because to me, with the access bars, you lay on the table, you receive. I fall asleep basically every time I get my bars run, and I wake up with more space, more clarity, more silence in my world, and it's very cool. And I'm grateful for the gift of that. And so meditation, it's one tool for silence. And what else? If you're somebody who's not really like a meditator, what is something that you could gift yourself, that where you would just tap in more to the silence that is there? The silence is always there underneath all of the noise. Now, there are noises, like even for me right now in my environment, there's a plane going by, That's one type of noise. And then there's the sounds of the birds, and that's another type of noise. And then there's the energetic awareness that I get to have when I'm here in nature, and that like there's universes that I could speak to around that, that really opens so much up for me. And I've recently, and on my trip to Europe, I was in 5 different countries, all of which were just so beautiful. There's a lot of natural beauty. I was in most of the places I was visiting. There's a lot of nature around. And then I was also in Budapest. There's a river, and so there's some natural beauty in Budapest. But the the beauty in Budapest is also very much in the architecture and the history, and just some really stunning buildings, and intense beauty in Budapest. Um, and so it can show up as the natural world, or like an incredible antique, or a place that has a lot of silence. The Castello di Castelborgone, which is a beautiful castle in northern Italy, created by Gary Douglas and Dane Heer, who are the creators of Access Consciousness. That's a created space. It's a building. It's a place. Really, it's not just a building. It's a place. It's an entire entity, really, that has a dynamic consciousness of its own, that facilitates a lot of silence. So there's silence that we can tap into in so many places. And I dare say we just don't have enough of it in our world. And that's something I'm really asking for more of every day. One of the things I find is that when I give myself a space of silence, a gift of silence, time for silence, is I get huge downloads and so much awareness of what is possible. And I get loads of creative ideas in my business. I get really inspired. My body is nurtured in a very different way. There's so much that goes on in that space that I'm really grateful for. And there's also this there's some things that kind of like feed the silence as well, that I wanted to speak to. This morning I was sitting out here drinking my coffee, having my breakfast, and I carry around journals with me when I'm at home. I have a lot of journals. These are just some of them. I am incredibly fast and ADHD and autistic and OCD, and I love to write with my hands. And I love to write things down. I get these like juicy, colorful pens, and I love the act of writing and like not typing. And these journals are full of all kinds of random stuff. A lot of them have like questions in them, or just ideas that I've written down. Some of them are kind of more like lists of things I want to do in my business. Some of them are notes that I've taken from like podcasts or classes. And the thing for me about keeping these journals is it doesn't really matter. It's the act of writing, for me, that allows me to capture the energies of things. And I'm always looking at the energy rather than the content. To me, the energy is so much more of what's true for me. The content is not necessarily the end all be all. Now, there's this conversation that we have had before. I mean, some people may have heard this before in Access Consciousness, about information and awareness. And information is, most of the world lives on information. So if you want to grow your business, you would get marketing information. You would get information for how to grow your business from the experts, right? And there's so many experts out there. So many experts, and they will tell you their formula, tried and true, or their like system or whatever. And they will, give you their whatever, 10 steps or, whatever it may be, like their thing, you know. And and marketing people, I've talked to so many different marketing people over the years. And a lot of times what they want is they want you to really like distill and define what it is that you're doing into something that you can then like take to the world. Which I've never been able to do. I because my work evolves all the time, and it is so much more about the energy. And you may have noticed that if you follow me at all. This podcast covers a good jillion topics, and I just every time I hear somebody say like focus on one thing, I'm like, have you met me? That's not possible. That's not something I want to do. It might be, I mean, I guess I could make myself, but I don't want to do that. That's not fun for me. And I know that the energy of fun and joy and creative juice and exploration of possibility is the thing that makes me thrive, makes my life thrive, makes my business thrive in ways that have nothing to really do with, the rest of the, like what other people describe um, as, you know, um, like what would be success, I guess. My definition of success is it's not really a definition, it's a space and it's a choice and it's an energy, and it changes all the time, and it's an evolution of basically what it boils down to is me and my body and my life being very happy, thriving and contributing to others, in a way that is actually that works for me, and works for them too. So with these journals, a little bit of a digression, but with these journals, there's a lot of ideas and information that I've written in these, as well as awarenesses that I've had and questions and stuff over the years. And again, for me, it's the process of writing that is really cool. Um, it's just a process, and it just and I do a lot of times in the morning, I'll just kind of sit with them. Maybe I'll read them. Maybe I'll write when I'm home. I tend to do that when I travel. I don't so much. But just, and then I don't need to really look at what's there. And it's funny because today I was like, I'm gonna look and see what's in these things. It just kind of popped. And this one in particular popped out and was like, look at me. Um, and it was a journal that I used. I did this coaching year-long coaching program a year or so ago. I think I finished it just I don't know, about a year ago, maybe a little bit less. Um, and it was a lot of structure. Like it was very structured and not something that really worked for me in terms of the structure. And there was a lot of some cool ideas and awareness and stuff, but it was a lot of it was kind of like follow our thing and you will be successful and you can't not succeed. And I was like, okay. And I kind of tried, like I tried to go into their system, and try to like kind of force myself to do it. And it just didn't work. It didn't, I mean, but the thing was that was really cool is I got a lot of awareness from it. And this is where the information and awareness go together, because most people would, they took that class and they used the information, they applied the information and just, went with it. And, people were really like thriving with it and stuff. And for me, I gathered the information and it gave me a lot more awareness. And that's the thing is that when we create business or anything, our bodies, anything, please, I encourage you, if you are a seeker, if you are, what I would call a humanoid, somebody looking for something different in the world, an X-Men, somebody with like who's neurodiverse perhaps and has different capacities, please, I invite you to start to explore, or maybe explore more if you already have, the beauty and the value of your unique awareness. And because that's what comes from the silence, and the silence and the space of you. And if we don't give ourselves that space to explore, we don't it's very difficult to hear. So we have to turn the noise of this reality, is what I would call it. We have to turn the noise down, and there's a lot of ways to do that. Access consciousness bars is a way to do that. The access consciousness body processes are a way to do that. The clearings in access, and then stuff that's not access, like, I spend a lot of time on my lawn, like laying on the earth, looking at the sky, looking at the trees. I love laying on my back. That's really resourcing for me. So there's a lot of things I do with my body to turn down the noise. And for me, sometimes, side note, more intensity with my body can actually create more silence in my world. Like intense, like I have a big mountain right there, and I kind of like practically run up it as many days as I can when I'm here. Bowspring movement, like it can be a fairly intense movement practice, running, ice skating, things like that. So, intense physical activity or body work, even massages, things like that, they create relaxation actually for my body, and then they create space in my world. So, but with this piece about awareness and information, see, you get to see my ADHD, OCD, autistic tendencies right here. I'm like, let's go everywhere on this podcast today. Um, but but if we access information and we allow it to create more awareness, that is a really beautiful space to function from. And I am so it's so fun to play with that. And I also notice where sometimes I get my hands on information, and then I turn it I can turn it into structure, a little too structured for me. But I always kind of come back to like some sort of a greater space from it. And so with these journals, I was reading, and I was reading through a lot of the notes that I took in that year-long coaching program. And then I had some other, beautiful questions in there from an access class that I had taken. And it was so cool just to see, like, so many things that I wrote down really weren't that relevant to me, like here, not even a year later. Um, it was just, there was just I just knew to do it, and I knew that it would create more awareness for me. And one of the things that it created with this particular training was the awareness of really that I really love to do business from the joy of business, from the access consciousness business tools. And which to me is about acknowledging that we as beings are like, when you be more, when you have more silence in your world, people lean in, they reach. When you don't have any expectations of people, when you don't need them to choose your thing or to choose you or whatever, people they're just drawn. They want to know what it is that you're up to, what you're doing, what you're creating. They want to be around you. And that is it's such a it's just such a gift. For me, it was such a gift to actually do a training that didn't really work so much for me. I wasn't going to take the structure of it and run with it. I wasn't going to be somebody who, because they have people that do this program and they do it year in and year out. They've done it for 30 years, and they just keep deepening into the tools. I recognize, like, these tools are way too structured for me, and I would, shrivel up if I had to create my business from these tools. But that was the gift of it, because I've looked so many times at, different ways of doing things, and, different marketing systems and different conversations, and I still do, So it's not about, well, I know everything, I still every day get my hands on I like on information. I'm very voracious when it comes to studying things, learning about things. I love to learn. I love to learn new things. I don't stop though with what I learn as information. I let it filter through. I let it move in my world, and I see the awareness that I get to have from it. So with business and all these journals that are full of all these things, it's like there's like these journals, these 5 journals, and there's more in my house, have given me so much awareness. And I don't ever have to look at them again, or maybe I do. I kind of keep them around, and then I just, one of them will just kind of like talk to me. Um, and there's some really cool stuff in here. But but the stuff that tends to be the stuff that really contributes is the questions, the energetic tools. Like when I've written down different structures, like I just flipped through this one and there was some really cool questions and some business tools in here. And then there was also like some kind of structure that I created for myself based on a conversation that I had with a naturopath about my body, and it was like, this is what I need to do every day. Well, that I don't, I don't do, there's nothing that I do. Like, I don't have a structure for how I live every day. I mean, there's things that I like to do for my body all the time, but I got to be in the question. When we're in the question and when we're listening to the silence, when we have a level of silence in our world, we can perceive the things that are talking, the energies and the entities of different creations that are speaking to us. They're speaking to us. Like your business is talking to you, your creations are talking to you, your body is talking to you as the unique creature that you are. And you will know so much about how to create what it is that you would like to create. Your body knows so much about how to create what you would like to create. Um, you will know so much about that if you listen. And giving yourself access to information is a really cool way to expand your awareness. Sometimes you'll have information, like some of the more structured stuff in these journals where I'm like, yeah, that was cool for a minute. It created something for me. Now there's something different being asked for. And I continue to like the information that I tap into and access it like, and access, not in access, but and the information that I access is it contributes to me massively. Um, but it's not because I'm going to then go do what somebody else tells me to do. It's because I then get to have more awareness and I can let go of there's a lot of things where I can be like, that's not so much true for me. That's not really my reality. Um, so for instance, well, with business, as I mentioned before, like lots of different marketing conversations and business tools and I listen to, YouTube videos and podcasts. I listen to books. I love listening to audiobooks. Um, just getting my hands on information, but I know going in that maybe 2% of it will apply to me, you know, or that it might just give me a whole bunch of awareness that I now get to have to use for creation. Because the more awareness we have, the more silence we have, the more awareness we have. And not holding on to the information is also part of what creates the silence, is just being like, cool, great, done with that. If I need to come back to anything there, I know I will know. I will know. I will remember that. And that is it's such a cool way to play. Like there's such a trust there. It's like I know that if I need anything, it'll pop into my world. I'll remember it, whatever. I just know that. And I'm so much happier when I create that way, my way, like getting the information, letting it go, having more awareness, and really tapping in underneath it all to the silence. One other thing I wanted to share, um, and this is about bodies and food. I'm going to be starting tomorrow, depending on when you see this, but this on July 24th, a class called Eating for Space. And food has been something that has been really, it's been an amazing tool for me to create my body with over the years. And I've had my journey with it too. And, food isn't necessarily easy for a lot of people. I've had moments where it was and moments where it wasn't. And my body has been very sensitive and given me lots of information, lots of feedback, lots of awareness about what works. And then I, continue to evolve with it. Recently I've been in the past, like since the beginning of this year, I had a really different demand where I was actually asking to be more fit at the end of this year. I asked actually at the end of this year to be more fit and wealthier than I've ever been in my life so far, and then create even greater after that. So it was just like, cool, I'd like to have that as an adventure this year. And so all of a sudden things started coming into my world in both respects, with wealth and business, like money and business and body stuff. And so I started to just explore, new things. And with food, I dove into intermittent fasting and created some really cool stuff with my body with that. I learned so much. I really was like devouring information about blood sugar and metabolic health and fasting and ketones and, glucose and biochemistry. And I mean, just a whole universe. And there were so many tools from intermittent fasting that I gained that I have in my toolbox and I can use anytime. And I did it pretty religiously for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months. Created some really cool stuff with my body. And then my body was like, okay, something different now. And then that actually led to me getting my hands on some other information from a lady who's a exercise physiologist. She works with menopausal athletes. And she's like, fasting, she doesn't really recommend fasting, but she recommends all these other things. And so for me, I'm not like, well, now I'm not going to fast. Now I'm going to do this. It's just the awareness of like, cool, here's some more information to create more awareness for me and more tools. And I just keep adding to my toolbox. And I know that as things like my body then can just show me, hey, how about this today? How about that today? How about we fast today? How about we don't fast today? How about we fast for shorter? How about we fast for longer? How about we do, a lot of protein today? So just playing and trying new things that I wouldn't necessarily know to try because I didn't have the information. And then I get to try it and I get to see what awareness it creates, what it creates for my body and for my world. And that's just an example of how I work with food information and food awareness and body awareness with food and the creation of my body. And the same thing applies to business. The same thing applies to money. The same thing applies to relationships, to all those areas of life. And the thing that is the common ground that runs through all of it and that makes all of it greater is when I give myself greater access to me, to my knowing, to who I am as a being through the silence, cultivating more silence in my own universe, I get to have more clarity on what's true for me. I get to have more awareness of what's true for me. And I get to use that to create even greater. A lot of times, the things that we are asking to have more of in our lives or to have as different in our lives, they require us to make a different choice, or a lot of different choices. We can't keep making the same choices and expect to have something different show up. That's just not how it works. We have to choose something different. And in order to even know what we can choose, sometimes more information is very helpful. And the silence of awareness, which will give you more information, choice gives you more information and more awareness, um, is sort of the fertile ground from which all of it can spring. And so, because if you're like on Facebook or Instagram all day, or YouTube, or TikTok or whatever, or you're in meetings all day, or you're like rushing from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing all day long every day, or you're just like constantly distracted, or you're never having silence in your life, you don't get to know you. You don't get to listen to you and your body and have a sense of what's something that might be cool to try, something that might be a cool choice. And sometimes we choose things, like I chose this training last year, and it wasn't because I was going to dive into that world. I didn't know that at the time. I thought, well, maybe, let's see. There's some cool people. There's some cool energies here. And what it really ended up giving me was a much greater awareness of me. That's what I'm always going for. So it wasn't a wrong choice. It wasn't a waste of money. I'm so glad that I did it. Um, will I do it again? Probably not. Who knows? I know it's there. It's a tool. I could choose it if I wanted to, I could always go back and choose it. I know it's there, just like with fasting, or, a particular type of diet, or laying on the grass, moving my body, and giving ourselves new awareness, new information, new choices, new possibilities, new things to explore is, I think, really it creates the diversity of the biome. I used to have, well, I still do, the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. We talked a lot about the biome. And when we diversify our choices and the things that we expose ourselves to, we give ourselves this wealth of input into the biome. And then we can compost what isn't required, and we can like use and absorb the nutrients that are in all the ways, not just, I'm talking about energetically, and all the ways. And we begin to nourish our biome with diversity, and letting the silence be that fertile ground from which you just go, I know to do this now. I know to call this person right now. I know to choose this right now. I know this is what my body's asking for. I know this is what this relationship is asking for. And then choosing from there. Some of the choices require a lot of courage, and some of them, are easier than others. But the ones that require a lot of courage are oftentimes the ones that yield so much for us. And if we have this space of silence, the ground of silence, the field of silence, that, if we have that as available to us really all the time, a silence of peace and presence with ourselves, then our knowing of what to choose and where to go next and all of that, it's so much more clear, and it becomes more clear all the time. And that's what I'm interested in for myself, for my life, and to facilitate other people into the exploration of. It's like, what's true for you? What is true for you? What do you know? Because as a being, not your mind, not your thought process, not what you've been educated in, not the information that you have, but what do you know as a being? What do you know is going to work for you, for the creation of a different future, for the creation of what it is that you're asking for? And when we stay with that and we don't leave ourselves, we don't get distracted away from ourselves, we just get to make that silence grows louder and louder and louder and louder, and it becomes like one of the greatest resources that we can have, that we do have, and that we be. So I'm really enjoying this conversation, and looking forward to exploring it so much more in so many ways. We have the Eating for Space starting tomorrow, for those of you that are, if you're interested in this with your body and with food. And also a deep dive for 6 months. My Generative Business Pods program is it's an amazing 6-month creation intensive that is all about everything that I've talked about here. It's really empowering you to know what is true for you with your business, and to make those daily choices that create something greater. And the topic for this particular one is going to be what emerges from silence. And so funny, we have a lawnmower now, so I'm gonna wind down. What emerges from silence? And there's going to be a free call on August 20th. If you know to jump in. It might fill up. I don't know. We'll see. We have about 20 spots available. We're going to be offering it in languages this time, so it's going to be different in that way. There's going to be a free call on August 20th. Exploring the sweetness of silence, to introduce you to the business pods. And then I'm also going to be doing a 30-day series called Unplug. And Unplug is actually going to be a digital detox. It is going to be online, so that's kind of funny, but that's how we do things. But outside of our time online daily, it's daily, 20-minute conversations and energetic exercises to explore stretching into unplugging from distraction, from overuse of technology, and unplugging from that and into the silence of you, the beauty of your world. So it's about balancing the ecosystem of your body, the earth, your business, and your nervous system and technology, and allowing all of that to really weave its way into something greater. Technology isn't evil. It's a beautiful thing, and let's use it in a way that is really generative and not destructive. And I know for me, this is something I'm asking for too, because I do spend more time than I and my body would like to on my devices. So I would like to really change that, and I know a lot of people that would as well. So this is kind of one of those where you get to really tap in to a group of people and daily conversations to support making some different choices with technology, because that really requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of presence and willingness to not get distracted, and to not distract ourselves, and to sit in the silence of what's possible that we haven't considered, and that again, it's just a different thing to explore. So, and there's going to be a lot more. I kind of feel this to be a bit of a theme going on, over the next many months. Probably some more body stuff showing up, body classes online, and 3-day body classes for sure. So you can find all of it on my website, heathernichols.com/events. And Gary Douglas is also he's the founder of Access. He's doing a telecall early August called Are You Listening? And I love the synchronicity of that. You just put that out, and I was like, this is so cool. What's available now? So you can find that on the accessconsciousness.com as well. So what is possible with the beauty, the elegance, and the deep nurturing space of silence to create way more magic and miraculousness for you, and a greater sense of you having a depth of peace and joy and ease and glory in your life and living and with your body that allows everything to just flourish. Let's have more of that. Thank you so much. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If this conversation was inspiring to you, share the love. To work privately with me or for info on my upcoming classes and retreats, go to heathernichols.com. Have a beautiful day, and remember that the world thrives when you do.